Welcome to the DL. I am your host, Tyler Robertson. This is the podcast show where we talk about everything going on in the on-highway diesel-powered equipment world, now the electric world. We talk about off-highway equipment. And today I got someone here that actually used to work for one of these off-highway equipment manufacturers, but is now actually helping a lot of businesses save expenses and do a lot of other stuff. So I think we're going to have a great conversation today. So let me welcome Luis to the show. Welcome to the DL, sir.
Hey man, thank you for having me. Oh, I love the name, by the way, the DL, right? Like multiple layers to that. And I love a great, multi-layered, thought-provoking statement. So thank you for having me. For real.
So I like it too, but it's like so short. It's hard. Like it doesn't describe what the show is, right? So people I think that are browsing are like, what the heck's the DL? Like I have no idea. So it's good and it's bad.
You know.
Yeah, we're figuring it out, and we got someone new here helping us with the podcast now. So I think you'll see some set changes and already some camera angle changes. So constant evolution, trying to make it a better and better thing for everybody.
Well, it's smart to bring in the experts, the people that do this, that know, right? Yeah.
I started to learn a while ago, since you bring that up, let's kind of hop right into it here. People ask me all the time, Tyler, how did you keep growing the company? And the thing I had to really, I guess I get a couple points across to them is, one, I had to get okay with paying people more than I pay myself. And two, I had to not be in control of things anymore. So I know you work with a lot of businesses. Do you see them getting stuck at certain levels?
All the time.
Yeah. Yes. What do you see, or how do you try to help those people?
Okay. So a few things, and really appreciate that question. Thank you so much for asking that. Because it is a frustrating point for me with a lot of folks. I do a variety of things to help business owners, and I kind of sort of stumbled into expanding my service. We started with just purely cost reduction, and I found that if somebody needs to improve their COGS, the cost of goods sold, and they need to make it better, if I just solve 7 or 8 different ancillary costs, but don't get to the root cause of the problem, we're not really solving what's going on and the reason why they're coming to me. And usually when they come to me, it's already gotten really bad. They finally feel like we really have to have this conversation about the controlling the cost. But the reason a lot of what I find when we start talking root cause is, one, a lack of delegation. So kind of pushing the leadership side. And I talk about it in the book on leadership a lot about relinquishing control. And so, with business owners, if I can do it 100%, you have to get comfortable with a 75 or 80% solution that you're going to pay money for. And there's a reason why you want to do that. Your decision making is a muscle. Okay. So if you're always working that muscle out on menial decisions, then the big ones you're going to be exhausted for, and you make poor decisions. And maybe to monetize this a little bit and say, if every decision tree in your company has you in it, you will never sell. You cannot sell that company because you are the company, right? So you need to start getting yourself out of those decisions and allow other people to make them. And surprisingly, you may find they may be better at it than you, and they're going to look at the problem differently than you will as well. I talk to a lot of owners, and when are the times of inspiration? When you come up with a new idea and you level up the business. Usually it happens when you made a good hire at a senior level decision. You've passed on responsibility, and then all of a sudden you had this bright idea, right? Like I hired a director of operations, and now all of a sudden I'm like, wait, we can actually launch a new product, right? That's usually when those things happen. Or you go on vacation and you get away from the business, and then you come back and you're like, oh, so the point is that when you relax that decision-making muscle, whether it's bringing in a consultant or hiring somebody new or taking a vacation, getting that moment of rest to the decisions that you're making all the time is really what's going to allow you to level up the business. But if you never take a vacation and you're afraid to hire people to take on those tasks, and you won't bring in a consultant because they're too expensive, whatever it may be, yeah, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think you were maybe spying or had some eavesdropping going on in some of our conversations here the last year or so, because you pretty much summed up what we went through, and we still go through, but it was the same thing. And I think every company, depending on what your business is, kind of hits a plateau. And I didn't understand why at the time, But now after going through it and realizing that I was the bottleneck and I was the one causing the problems and not my employees, I had to get out of my own way. And that's really, really difficult for CEOs, leaders, especially founders. If you throw the word founder in there, it's even more difficult. It's like, it's your baby that you created and grew up. So people listening to this, I see it all the time. I talk to clients, I talk to vendors, and it's just like Luis was saying, when you're having a conversation and every time you ask, like, well, who do we go for this? Who do we go for that? And it's the CEO or the owner raising his hand. I was just like, I know we're going to be in trouble here. This is never going to move forward the velocity that I need it to.
Right. Yeah. And being comfortable with allowing people to make decisions, right? I've had conversations with folks where I've looked at kind of their employee side, which is another one that's happening a lot lately is we can't retain, we can't recruit, all of these kind of problems. And I'm looking at some of their employees and I'm looking at what is the market rate. And I'm talking to folks and I say, look, here's a really good employee that you have that has a really strong potential future. You need to give them like a $2 or $3 raise. And they balk at that. Well, that's got to be president level only, the top people. And that's way more than 10% and blah, blah, blah. And I said, wait, hold on. That is a $6,000 decision because it's 2,080 hours a year. You're going to pay him $3 for that. It's a $6,000 decision. Why are you holding that at the very top level of a company with 1,500, 2,000 employees? Stop doing that. And then they leave. And then you go back to this. We're cycling through this. This is so hard. If we start looking at how many $6,000 decisions do you make a day, man? This is not a difficult choice.
Yeah. I mean, that's looking at the bigger picture, not the smaller picture. I think a lot of people get caught up on. And kind of since you brought up employment, this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. And I've seen you post about it on LinkedIn and talk about it. I don't think any of us are immune from this great resignation area and this whole time that's going on. And I think sometimes people look at my company and like, oh, they're fast growing, they do exciting things. People, we lose employees too. But the question I want to ask you is kind of the interesting thing I've seen lately is we've had a couple employees leave for other companies and they just got like huge pay raises. Like we just had a guy turn in his notice and he literally is like, well, I'm getting a $30,000 a year raise with somebody else. And we've had it a couple times where people have taken VP jobs somewhere and I'm like, man, you are, I know you, I've worked with you for a year or two. You're not vice president level, but they're getting those roles. Is it getting that bad out there where people are kind of getting brought into roles they're not really ready for, or am I just overreacting? What are you seeing?
Well, I think there's a little bit of that. And there's a risk associated with on the employee side as well. So there's multiple factors. One is flexibility in work schedules. That's been a big one. Benefits packages and then title changes as well. But I think if anybody comes to you, if you're looking for someone to give you an idea, and if I was to tell you, Tyler, this is the 5 things you got to do to retain employees, then you should know immediately that everything I just said is BS and don't pay attention to anything because I don't know your employees. I don't know your company. I haven't talked to anybody that's working for you. And if I'm willing to offer you solutions without doing that, then my advice is BS. So just ignore it. That's what I would say. The person that you do need to listen to is the one that says, well, if you want to solve this problem, we need to actually do some research. The same way we do research about our customers and our client base, right? If I want to sell to somebody, I establish what does that person look like, right? You're going to say, this is my ideal customer. And then you're going to know everything about them, what they value, what are their principles, what do they read, what platforms, social media are they on, who are their friends, what are they talking, all of these things, right? We need to do that internally, flip it back and look at the folks that are working for us. Why do they choose us? Why do they like working here? What type of person is successful in our company? What are the things they value the most? Is it just money? Is it something else? Do they like our mission? And if we understand that picture, then we can build teams that are going to be more successful. We can create job postings that are going to attract that person. So we have less turnover. We have a culture that we know who we're looking for. Because we want people that are going to value X, Y, Z. And then we can increase the value to our own personnel based on the things that we determine. These are the biggest factors of why people choose to work for us. So don't trust anybody who tries to give you the answer. That's just, don't listen to them.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know we kind of just jumped right into this conversation, so it's kind of weird to do this in the middle, but I'd love to people get a little bit more of a background. Like, where did you come from? What do you do? I kind of mentioned you worked at a big, OEM previously. What do you do, and kind of what are you doing now? And then we'll, I think, drill into a little bit about the cost saving stuff.
Okay, sure. So I'm a former Army officer. I joined the military not long after September 11th. Did a tour in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then I spent some time working in military intelligence on the counter weapons of mass destruction, kind of global intel picture. So I had the opportunity to lead a platoon of soldiers in the mountains of Afghanistan, like way low tactical level, and then also work for a general on weapons of mass destruction, kind of global picture. So you're just getting the full gamut of that. I worked for John Deere for a while, brought a bunch of new products to market for them, was a program manager, a product manager, did some marketing, led an assembly line. I worked for Caterpillar for a time at a dealership. So understood, what's going on the dealer side of, working on this equipment, which really, I was actually talking to someone today about your company and the value that it brings, and how, I did a ride along with a field service tech. We drove 3 hours and then realized it was a fuse on this motor grader that needed replaced. And I just think often about how that guy spent probably close to $600 to replace a fuse. And if he had a diesel laptop, maybe that wouldn't have been a problem, right? So, and then during COVID, I was kind of in a senior position and had to send everybody home in the office, and I was alone in the office. The kind of where you have to like move your arms so the lights don't turn off on you. And I realized, like, I'm working for $1 billion company, and we're able to sustain what's going on right now. But there's a lot of organizations out there that can't. And how do we, I was in charge of figuring out how we're going to flex to solve this problem. And I realized that there was an opportunity in the marketplace there. And that's where I started with the Schooley Mitchell side of the business, which is just pure cost reduction, looking at 8 specific categories: telecom waste, shipping, fuel, these kinds of things. And we just do an objective. We've got 100 analysts that go and look at these different cost categories and find savings for clients. And we only get paid from the savings, so there's no upfront cost. And I thought, here's an opportunity to really help a lot of folks out, and to get through what we're going through. And like I said, through these conversations with business owners and the like, and I realized, okay, I've got 20 years of experience leading teams. I've been through all of this stuff. I've brought new products to market. I've built assembly lines from scratch. I've developed marketing plans. And that gives me kind of a unique perspective, and my decision-making muscle isn't exhausted. So I can come in here and do a walk around and say, you guys have no lean operation in here whatsoever. How do your employees know that they're winning every day? And, identify problems like the decision tree. You're in every part of the decision tree. If I can't have a conversation with a CEO for 30 minutes without the phone ringing 7 times, getting 24 texts and hearing the email pinging, and then somebody walking into the office for a quick interruption, you're making too many decisions, right? So that's where I started to expand this out and say, I can solve a lot more problems and help your business in a lot of ways. And that's also how the leadership book sort of came about.
All right. So I have to ask this question, right? So before on the air, we're talking about how you got 3 kids. Sounds like around my kids' ages, all under the age of 12. You're a veteran. You got your own business going on. Where are you finding time to write a book? Because I've always had that in the back of my head. Like, man, I'd love to write a book about this story, but one day. But I'm like, you know what? I just don't have the time. So how do I find the time to do that?
I delegate a lot of stuff. I recognize somebody said to me one time many years ago, said, how many minimum wage tasks are you doing? And it kind of thought about like, I was a program manager actually, and there was we were getting paid a significant amount of money. I mean, it was probably close to 10 grand a month by a Fortune 100 company. And 3 of the program managers, and in the beginning, myself included, we were spending a lot of time on PowerPoint and Excel, like creating presentations and stuff. And I realized, like, what a waste of money that is not what I'm sure John Deere wants me to be doing with my time and my money. And so finding ways of delegating these tasks to folks that are interested or want to grow, potential future leaders and saying, hey, you do this and you can present, you can get in front of the director and you can showcase your skill sets and give you opportunities. And I realized like by doing that, I also was the only guy who had 6 projects. Everybody else had 1 or 2. I had 6 full-time projects, gave work direction to 90 employees across 3 different countries. Everybody was like, the same question, how do you find time? Like, I don't do it all, man. Like, I just.
I'm right there with you. I can tell you about a year and a half ago, we hired an executive assistant that kind of helps all of us executives out. And just having someone to deal with like arranging things and flights and travels and meetings was a huge lifesaver. But then I actually hired a virtual assistant as well. So one of the things I wanted to do this year was get on more podcasts. So I hired a virtual assistant and said, go book me on these types of podcasts. And she's been doing a great job. And she's actually been working me up and up into bigger and bigger podcast networks. I just got launched on a pretty big one yesterday they agreed to do. So it is amazing once you start hiring people to help you do things, how much time that can save you and money. So, but talking about money savings, your whole cost reduction thing that you do, is it aimed towards small business, medium business, enterprise levels? Who's your ideal customer that you're looking for?
I would say medium to large size businesses. The small businesses, I do by exception, because we're putting in the time and the money up front. So there is no upfront cost to them, and we're splitting the savings with the folks that we do. So there's an additional risk when we get into the smaller size clients, because it's going to cost me regardless if we save them money. With medium and larger clients, usually is where folks that are growing quickly, that's where opportunities for inefficiencies pop in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first look for any errors that may exist. Maybe you have a double billing that happens twice a year that you just didn't realize, and the vendor didn't realize it either. That would be a billing error that we correct. Then we look for optimization of services, like you've got people retiring or quitting or whatever, and you've bought them all cell phones, but instead of canceling the line, you're just going to give it to the next person when you refill that role. Well, you end up going 3, 4, 5 months and you're paying for these lines that you don't need. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we look for there in the optimization of services, and then negotiating with the vendors to find opportunities to help them. So when you're a larger company, there's more opportunity there for us to find inefficiencies, to negotiate with vendors, to find all of the special programs and deals that vendors have. So we look for that medium to large company, somebody who's shipping a lot of products, third-party logistics, manufacturers, e-commerce folks. These are great opportunities where we can, and heavy equipment folks, because you've got your fleet tracking and all that. And there's a whole bunch of cool stuff we can do with the fleet tracking as well.
So I know when COVID happened, previously that we kind of cared about expenses, like, hey, watch where you're spending money, that type of thing. But we never really like cared about it. But then COVID happened, and all of a sudden we cared about it. Yeah. And it was actually amazing how we reduced a couple $100,000 a year of our company just by looking at it. So I can imagine businesses, that's one of the things, is just no one's looking at it. They're just kind of going through the motions, and this is what we always do for phones and services. But is there some key areas that kind of always like kind of check the boxes? Like these are the 3 or 4 big ones that you mainly go after if people are listening to this?
So one would be cell phones. That's usually that's an easy one to kind of start with. So I've been that P&L guy that has that ownership responsibility. Usually that comes with a lot of other responsibilities, and I know about my decision-making muscle. So what do we decide when it comes to cell phones? Everybody gets the unlimited plan. I'm not going to pay any overages. I know it's going to be $120 a month per person. That's set. And last year's phone, right? And then we just move forward from there. And so there's a lot of opportunity there where, you get a bunch of folks that basically refuse to use the phone. Like, no, you don't pay me to work off site or when I'm not here. So when I'm at my desk, I'll answer, and then otherwise not. And then you have kind of the counter, the folks that are always away from their desk. And so they take the desk phone and they forward it to the cell phone. So they never use a desk phone, but you pay for that VoIP line, right? So there's opportunities on 2 different sides, or there are folks that they're always on the Wi-Fi, so they never use any data because they're either at work or they're at home. So you're paying for an unlimited data plan that's not being used. There's all of that. It is unreasonable usually to say as a business owner that you will do that, because it may not be worth your time to invest into looking at that. But maybe it is because, we end up finding, 50, 100, sometimes even $1 million, not just in cell phones, but, in the overall telecom space. Another one is shipping costs. There's a lot of error. I don't know if you probably look at your shipping bills, and they're almost built to be convoluted and complicated on purpose. I like reading them sometimes is like, how do you find, what am I getting billed for? There's like 7 pages on this stuff, and it's all these ancillary expenses and 20,000 base rates and all of the additional tack-ons, and there was the signatures and additional costs, and residential's additional cost, like all these additional costs. And then we have 7 different shippers that we use, so we don't actually get both discounts with anybody. These are kind of things that if you have the opportunity to take and look through yourself and really do that research, that makes sense. If you don't want to do that, because you don't see the value, that's where we come in and of course can take care of that. Those are some things that we spot very often. Or one of my favorites is the trash can, the dumpster outside that has a door on the side. Immediately, as soon as I can pull into the parking lot and say, all right, you got that dumpster's a problem. Well, we got the door because we have an older employee, and having them reach over the top. Okay, but you're paying for the full cubic feet of that entire dumpster, but you can only use up to the bottom of the door. Well, we just close the door and put it over the top. So what the hell do you have the door for anyway?
I mean, what you're talking about is all we call them like the unknown unknowns, right? Like you're a business owner, your business, you don't understand all these things. So just to give the audience an example, we went through this with UPS, where we ship a lot of packages out of here every day. And trust me, we're a bunch of dumb truck guys figuring out how to ship product all around the United States, right? So we're not reviewing contracts, understanding all these million rules they have. But apparently, we were just kind of guessing on the measurements, dimensionals on the boxes. And then they would actually, if they were over the threshold, they'd charge us a fee to resize or redo whatever. Well, when we finally figured that out, it was like $40,000 a year because we weren't putting in the exact measurements on the boxes. So for the audience listening to this, there's a lot of things like that out there that you just don't know about or don't see or understand. And people like what Luis does, they know these things. But do you guys get that granular? Like you were talking on the phone bills, you guys get that granular down to Sally's not using data and this person's never using their desk phone. You go that deep on all these different 8 categories?
Every single category. We test every single phone line. So one of the questions that we have is, do you have an elevator? Because no one's going to answer that phone. Right? And when we're testing every single line, we need to know, what are the lines that are necessary but not in use. We do get that granular with the packages because there's 2 ways of getting charged. You either get charged by the weight or by the size of the package. And that's a delicate balance because you also don't want to have 17 different box sizes because you got to store all 17 different box sizes. There's a business case of, I only want 3 different box sizes so that I have fewer things that I need to, store or whatever. So there's you're all of these levers, you pull this one down, this one's going to go up. So how do we do this in a smart way that makes sense? And you got to get that granular.
So what's the process like when you have a client that engages you? It's just like, hey, client, send me all your invoices and we'll get back to you, or what do they go through?
Yeah. So the first thing we do is, we'll sit down, we'll talk about the contract, and basically the client will agree that if I save them money, they're going to pay me, and if I don't save money, they're not going to pay me. And there's a little bit of detail that goes into that contract agreement. They give me access to their billing statements, invoices, and contracts. And then because I delegate all that stuff, we hand it off to the analysis team. We've got 100 people there. They're focused on each category, and they go through the bills. They call the service providers. They benchmark the costs, and then I'll come back. Usually it takes a couple months, and we'll come back and say, okay, look, here's 3 different options that you have. If you do this option, you're going to save the most money. It's with your current vendor. The employees won't even notice there's a change. They may just notice, they'll get an email that says, hey, if you decide to stop using Wi-Fi, please let us know. Right? That will be the extent of them knowing that, we did all these changes to the cell phone plans or whatever. And hey, Sally, you're not using your cell phone. Just go ahead and turn it in, and voila, we've just saved you $25,000 a year. And nobody even noticed. 85% of the time folks stay with the current vendor. Yeah. And so we'll say, hey, here's your 3 different options. Which one do you like? They say A, B, or C. And then we help with the implementation. And then we actually stick around because a lot of consultants and, they'll give you like, hey, this is what you need to do. Good luck. High five. Because we're expensive. Right. So when it comes to like my operational stuff and strategic stuff, that's maybe what I'll do is say, here's what you need to do to make these operational changes. After that, you implement it. If you have questions, then call me. But otherwise, you don't want to spend $100 an hour to, have me execute that. You have people that work for you to do that. But with the schoolie side, because we're sharing in the savings, we actually stick around and we do a new analysis every quarter to make sure that everything we said would happen is actually happening. And we identify, maybe some new inefficiencies pop in, or if your business grows and now you can get new savings, we'll execute those as well. So it's a 3-year kind of partnership.
All right. Sounds like an interesting business. The thing I want to talk about is, how do you get new clients? And can you talk a little bit, I guess, about LinkedIn? I see you on LinkedIn all the time. I'm on LinkedIn there too, posting stuff. Yeah. How long have you been doing it for? How does it work for you? Maybe give the audience a sense of followers or how you think that's going on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So social media cannot be ignored. A lot of folks, they've heard this. And so I've seen some jobs posted that the social media managers, also marketing managers, also product managers, also website development, is also like front end web development. Like these are all like 25 different things. It's not the same person. Social media is, you probably heard the statement, your network is your net worth, right? And so depending on where your client base is, you want to have a presence where they are, right? It's free marketing. To get in front of as many people as I get in front of. My last post had 17,000 impressions. So I got in front of 17,000 people. How much would it cost me to do that? And I did it on the toilet on my phone from whatever idea I had, right?
Yeah, I'm there too. I'm usually just like on my boat or somewhere else. Like, I'll get this idea in my head, right?
I was just being real and honest, which is the next point of that's how you're successful in social media.
Yeah.
Right. We all know when you're on whatever platform you're on, you recognize an ad before you're impressed by that ad, right? Before that, you already know, like I'm already scrolling past it because I know that next one's an ad and I'm not interested in looking at ads. I'm interested in getting to know people. So we have this, and being more client or network focused, right? I say client because when I'm talking to a business, that's what I'm trying to tell them is you need to be client centric, right? People want to hear stories about people. Your page, Tyler's LinkedIn page is going to always get more engagement and be more popular than Diesel Laptop's LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
Elon Musk versus Tesla. They could tweet the exact same thing. Elon's page is going to get a lot more. And we can even get to what was the first moon rover? Nobody cares, but we all know Neil Armstrong, right? Like we care about people. We have empathy that's kind of like ingrained. We want to hear people's stories and hear about them and what are the thoughts and what's going on in your world, right? So being people centric, and then if you're a business, being customer centric is what are the things that your client base cares about, and how do we bring them forward, right? So if I share something about Diesel Laptops, me personally, and I'm like, hey, Tyler and I got together and we did this podcast and look at how cool, right? That adds value to you. It adds value to me. The network thinks it's interesting. People are going to engage with that. Being personable, and being human centric and client centric. That's really, if like you want to stay high level, how to be successful. That's what's gonna draw people to you.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I just found LinkedIn as an outlet for me, several years ago. I was like, man, I just need a place to talk about the things in my life because none of my friends or family understand what I'm going through. So for me, I've always done, I think what you just said, hey, be transparent, just keep throwing it out there. And you know what I can say to the audience listening, like I never go on there and say, hey, buy this thing for me or go fill this form out to do something. I never do that. But yet every week I get people approaching me on LinkedIn, usually through direct messages like, hey, I'm interested in your thing. I want to try it out, which is great. But I would also like, have you tried any of the paid stuff on LinkedIn? We have. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'd love to know if you've tried anything on there yet and if it's worked for you.
I have not. I had a free trial version of one. It didn't really work for me. I'm not big in popping into people's DMs. I'm not a huge fan of that, to try and sell. I've tried a few different things, but really what works is engaging with somebody else's content. And when I see somebody who posts something and then never replies to any comments, and then they worry, why isn't it working? Well, you're going to a networking meeting, you're standing up on the table, you're making an announcement, and then you're not talking to anyone, and then you're wondering why nobody wants to talk to you, or you're not talking to them.
Yeah.
It's a social networking. So go out there, engage with them, engage in their content. Hey man, that's a really cool. Here's my thought on this thing that you just posted. Yeah, I don't do the paid stuff.
Yeah. So we've tried so we do paid ads on Facebook. We do paid ads on Google, and those do really well and generate us leads. And we've tried the same. So like the paid stuff where you're scrolling through your feed on LinkedIn, a little ad comes up, right? So it's just amazing that it works so well for us on the other platforms. Even TikTok's working well, but I cannot get it to work on LinkedIn. We have changed the copy. We've changed the landing page. Like none of the math ever works. And I think I've tried like 6 times now, and I'm kind of done with it. So, but the organic, just talking about our business and challenges and wins seems to work for us to this point. So
I know there's some LinkedIn ads experts out there. I know one in particular who may be good, but I've never, similar to you, to me, the value is in generating engaging content, and then conversations like this kind of pop up, you know, and I've had people say, they'll send me a message and be like, do you work with nonprofits? Just kind of like that's the initial message. Do you work with nonprofits? Hey, yeah, I do. Let's have a conversation. Right. And it was just from seeing us talk about what we do and then but again, when people finally come to me, the problem's already kind of big. And so it's a bigger issue that we need to solve. And I just wish folks would come talk to me and things are going well. Right? Like before it's chaos, because it's going to take me a few months to do what I need to do. And sometimes it's like, well, I don't have that much time. Like, I don't know what I could do for you, man. Right? Like just come to me when things are good,
Well, I know that you are a busy person. I know you got a lot going on, as we've been talking about here. But if people want to find you, and by the way, for the audience listening, you should definitely find him here on LinkedIn. He's got some great content. He constantly puts it out there and very much engages. He's doing all the right things. If you want to know how to win at LinkedIn, just follow what Luis is doing. So, Luis, how do they find you on LinkedIn, and what's your website to learn more about the cost-saving stuff?
Well, just go to Luis J. Fernandez, Luis J. Fernandez. I'm going to be probably the first one that's going to pop up in your search bar. I've got about 12,000 followers there. I think that's why, Tyler's saying like, hey, so that's a good place to start. I've got all of anything you want to know about me. I really, LinkedIn is my social media home. It's where my potential clients are. The folks I'm looking to talk to, that's what they're engaging with. So that's where I'm at, and that's where to find me. And then I've got links to all the websites and stuff like that from there. And I told Tyler when we started that my son is my 12-year-old who I can't get away from a computer is actually updating my website, luisjfernandez.com. So it's going to be different, and I'm looking forward to being able to get out there and say, hey, you can go on it now, but it may look different 10 minutes later because he is playing with it as we talk.
Well, yours must be doing better with computers because you got him building websites. Yesterday, I found out my 11-year-old got banned from Minecraft for 3 days for doing something inappropriate on there. So I got to dig into that one here today. So with that said, we're going to wrap this episode up, guys. I think it's a great episode. I think we need to do more of these, man. Just kind of have some conversation about business, leadership, all these things going on in the world. I really enjoy these type of conversations. So thank you very much for coming on. As we end every episode, it's not just diagnostics, it's diagnostics done right. And in your business, there are ways to save money that you probably don't even know. Talk to Luis. I'm sure he can help you. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll catch you on the next one.